We are singing to our lovely lamp, and it's bubbly, 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 bubbly. We are singing to our lovely lamp, and it's bubbly, bubbly, bubbly. Why? Well, hello everybody. I am here to begin my series, begin my series on Calvinism. And my very first post, one second, I need to fix something that's sitting underneath my camera. This was sitting there. So anyway, yes, defining Calvinism. That is my first topic. I'd like to just give you a basic idea of what Calvinism is, and that's basically it. Just kind of explain what I mean when I say I am a Calvinist, and what it is that I'm going to be trying convincing you of, or at least defending. So, there are really two different ways to define Calvinism. There is the more broad definition and the more narrow definition. I'll be talking about the more narrow definition, which refers to the 5 points of Calvinist salvation theology, which is, I'll explain the points in a minute. That's all I'm talking about when I say that I'm a Calvinist and all that I'm defending. Because there's also the more broad use of the word Calvinism, which refers not only to that, but to a lot of other theology that traditionally has gone along with it. General Reformed theology, like covenant theology and infant baptism, and a few other things like that. Presbyterianism. It's varied. But, okay. So yeah, I'm going with the more limited sense. I'm not a covenant theologian. I don't support infant baptism, and I believe in a congregationalist church policy, but those are all entirely different stories. So, the 5 points of Calvinism were originally formulated in response to growing Arminianism after the Protestant Reformation, sometime afterwards, and it was actually a significant amount of time, not like really, really late, but John Calvin was dead by this time. So that gives you kind of an idea, I guess, maybe. But the point is, they're not specifically Calvin's. They were just kind of summarizing the basic ideas that were expressed in Calvin's work, and before him, St. Augustine, and mirrored in Luther, and all throughout the Protestant Reformation. So, these 5 points is usually what people are talking about when they say Calvinist, and they're what I hold to as a Calvinist. So, I will tell you the 5 points. First one is total depravity, which basically just says that man, because of the fall, by his own sinful nature, is so thoroughly corrupt, not as in, so thoroughly corrupt that he cannot, because he will not, he has no desire, no ability, entirely anti-disposition towards accepting God, or honoring God, or anything along those lines. Man by nature is anti-God because of his sinful nature. That's the idea. So the point is that since the heart and the mind and the will are all corrupt by sin, no one can come to God by free will, because their wills are all evil, basically. I mean, it's not to say that everyone's as evil as they can be. Because God has this common grace given to all people, restraining their sinful influences. So that's why, you have even pretty decent people who don't know anything about God, don't even care. But it's saying that every element of who a person is tainted by sin to the extent where they cannot have the willpower to come to God, because they are evil. Then, there's point number 2, U. I forgot to tell you that these actually form an acrostic. It's tulip, which is why I'm going to show a picture of a tulip right now. And, yeah, anyway, So the T was total depravity. The U was unconditional election, which I absolutely love. Basically says that since everyone's totally depraved and man has no inclination to come to God on its own at all, then God chose unconditionally. Unconditionally, he chose for himself some people to save. His own elect people, that he looked down at this fallen mass of sinful humanity, and he just picked these people without any reference to any works they had or would have in the future, or any faith they would have in the future, or anything. He just looked at these people, just found people, looked at me, looked at maybe you. I don't know, for all I know, you could be anyone, but if you're a Christian, then he looked at you, me, all these others, and he said, I'm going to save that person. Doesn't matter if they're worth it, doesn't matter if there's anything good about them at all, I'm going to make it happen. And that's unconditional election. It's not based on anything God knew we would do, or anything that we would be, or any good thing about our future. Only because he said so. He elected to save those people. So, then there's L, whichever way works. L, I think. Yeah. Which is limited atonement, which a lot of people hate. And I kind of get why, but I won't go into that right now. I will go into that when I actually do my limited atonement video. But I love it. And it says that the only people that Jesus was actually dying for actually paying for their sins on the cross were the elect. The people that God unconditionally chose. Those are the only people whose sins were being paid for on the cross. I believe that for a lot of reasons. I will explain that more when I'm actually doing the video for that point. But I do believe that, and I believe it's good, and I think it's actually more wonderful than if we said that he did it for everyone. I will explain that, but not yet. Excuse me for a moment, I have an itch on my nose. Okay. So, then there's I, irresistible grace, which is also pretty awesome. Which basically says that since man is totally depraved and has no ability to come to God by free will, and since God is unconditionally elected to save this certain group of people, and since he has then sent Jesus to actually atone for their sins, then he sends his Holy Spirit down for all of his elect, every single one of those that he has actually chosen, and that the Spirit will inevitably, by grace, overcome all the resistance that they may have in their heart, any last ounce or bit, and bring them to saving faith. Bring them to be saved. That's basically what it is. It's that when God calls someone and says, I'm going to save this person, that by the Holy Spirit's power, it will happen, and there's no chance that it won't. Then there's perseverance of the saints, also called preservation of the saints, and this is what I absolutely love. It is the most amazing thing that I have to rely on every day. It says that because of these founding points beforehand, that man is totally depraved, so God unconditionally elected him and paid the price for his sins, and brought him to salvation by irresistible grace, then every single one of the elect will persevere in the faith to the end, because God will preserve him to the end. Nobody can lose their salvation, because God will do whatever it takes inside them to bring them to endure to the end and be saved. The perseverance of the saints. All the saints will persevere. If you've been saved, then you will keep the faith till you die. And if you haven't, you won't. And that is what it says. It says, and it's not even of your own works. It's not making it works or anything. It's not saying anything besides the fact that God chooses his elect, and then he brings them. He takes them all the way there. And they can't ruin it. And I find that amazing. I have to rest in that all the time, because I know I'd be doomed otherwise. But yeah, those are the 5 points. The big the big difference between this and Arminianism, which is basically the opposite of everything I've said. The big difference is ultimately the sovereignty of God and salvation. In Arminianism, it's like God knows the future, but He's not the one who decides who's going to be saved and who's not ultimately. He leaves it up to man to decide. It's finally, when it comes down to any given person's salvation, they get the ultimate choice. God doesn't. Calvinism, on the other hand, is the exact opposite. Is that when it comes down to the final decision of anyone's salvation, it's God's decision and not man's. God gets to pick exactly who's going to be saved, and He will. And nothing can thwart that plan. That is what makes Calvinism Calvinism. So, that is basically all for now. I will continue soon with my next video elaborating on the very first point of TULIP, T for total depravity. And that's all I have to say about this. So I will see you then. I don't know exactly how long it'll be. Probably just a couple days, maybe less, maybe more. But can't wait. It should be fun if you are interested in this at all and there's actually somebody watching this video. Bye guys.